Welcome back to another episode of RGR Football. This is Gridiron Lines with your host, Gary McKenzie. And today's episode is all about Gary's Deep Dive Jacksonville Jaguars Playoff Edition. We're going to take a look at the stats going into this game in a matchup between the Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars in the divisional round. The first time these two teams met was in Week 10. The Chiefs won 27-17. It wasn't close at the beginning, and the Jaguars scored a cheap touchdown in the fourth quarter to make the game look somewhat respectable. Also in that game, the Chiefs outgained the Jaguars by 171 yards. They threw the ball for 91 more yards. They outran the Jaguars, and they had a much greater yards per play. The Chiefs dominated this first matchup between them and the Jaguars. Other things to note, they had 9 more first downs. They were 7 out of 10 in third down, while the Jaguars were only 4-14 on third down. They both ran about the same amount of plays. The Chiefs sacked the Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence 5 times, while Mahomes wasn't hit once or sacked once. And the Chiefs lost the turnover battle 0-1. So the Chiefs dominated in this first game. Looking at the Jaguars, who is this team? What have they done well this year? They have the 10th ranked offense, scoring 23.8 points per game. Their passing offense is 11th with 6.3 passing yards per play. And they haven't done the best job taking care of the ball on offense with 22 turnovers. Defensively, they have the 12th ranked defense, allowing 20.6 yards per play. And in terms of total yards per play on defense, they've given up 5.4 yards per play. The Jaguar players to look out for, these are their top defensive players. Linebacker, I cannot pronounce this name, Royce Oluokun, had 28 tackles, 2 sacks, and 12 tackles for loss. Their best cornerback, statistically at least, is Tyson Campbell. He had 15 pass deflections and 3 interceptions. Outside linebacker Josh Allen led the team in sacks with only 6 sacks. So their sack leader had 6 total sacks, 35 tackles, 11 tackles for loss. Their other pass rusher, rookie Trayvon Walker, had 24 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 5 tackles for loss. He had less sacks than the Chiefs' own George Karlaftis. Jaguars' top offensive weapons, you have wide receiver Christian Kirk, who had 1,108 receiving yards with 8 touchdowns, earning some of that money he got paid this offseason. Then you have wide receiver Zay Jones, their number 2 wide receiver, with 823 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. You have tight end Evan Ingram, who had a resurgent year, 766 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. Then you have Marvin Jones as the number 3 receiver, 529 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. And lastly, you have running back Travis Etienne, who's had a very good year, 1,125 rushing yards with 5 rushing touchdowns. Who leads this Jaguars attack? That's Trevor Lawrence. He's 23 years old, also known as the prince who was promised by one broadcaster who you may watch sometimes. His numbers after the Week 10 loss versus Kansas City, he turned the season around very well. In those 7 games after the Chiefs lost, he threw for 67.8% completion percentage, threw for 254 yards per game, had 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions with a rating of 103.4. In that crazy come from behind win versus the Chargers in the wild card round, he was 28 of 47 for 59.6% completion percentage, 288 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for a very crappy rating of 70.2. But who is he going up against? And I'll have to tell you this. If Trevor Lawrence is the prince who was promised, then Patrick Mahomes is the king of kings. He's 26 years old, and his numbers in the playoffs in his career, he's played 11 games. He has an 8-3 record, a 66.2% completion percentage, 307 yards per game, 28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions for a rating of 105.7. In divisional round games, he's played 4 of them in his career, and he's gone 4-0 undefeated with a 69.3% completion percentage, 308 yards per game, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a rating of 114.1. So Mahomes dominates and tears up the divisional round of the playoffs. But what about good old Coach Reid? What has he done so far in the playoffs? Well, Coach Reid is 4-3 in the playoffs when beating that same team by more than a score in the regular season. So the Chiefs beat the Jaguars by more than a score. He's 4-3 all time. When he meets that team in the playoffs again, he's 2-0 with Kansas City and 2-3 with Philadelphia Eagles. So he hasn't lost a game with the Chiefs whenever he's beat them. Well, he hasn't lost a game in the playoffs with the Chiefs whenever he's beat them by more than one score in the regular season. Andy Reid is 19-8 versus his head coach understudies. I saw 24-8 floated out there, but after all my double checking, I only saw 19-8. He's 2-0 versus Doug Pederson, and he's 3-0 in the playoffs versus his understudy. So he's done well against coaches that used to be under his tutelage. The two head coaches in this game, their playoff comparison, Coach Reid has a total of 19-16 in the playoffs, going 10-9 with the Philadelphia Eagles and 9-7 with the Chiefs. While Doug Pederson has a very good winning percentage in the playoffs, he's 5-2, going 4-2 with the Eagles and 1-0 with the Jaguars. So Pederson is a good postseason coach, or he's had a good postseason start to his career. As a team, the Chiefs were 6-2 versus playoff teams in 2022, while the Jaguars were 3-3 versus playoff teams in 2022. How you did against playoff teams often has a good bearing on how you will perform in the playoffs, because what do you know? Every team you play in the playoffs made the playoffs. The Chiefs have opened as an 8.5-point favorite heading into this game. This gives them an 80.2% chance of winning, according to statistics I like to pull. Now, if you remember, I made a prediction video about what would happen in the wild card round, and what do you know? Every single one of my picks was right. Next week in the divisional round, I'm predicting the Eagles will beat the Giants, and I'm predicting the 49ers will beat the Cowboys, and the Eagles and 49ers will meet each other in the NFC Championship game. For this divisional round, I'm picking the Chiefs to beat the Jaguars, and I'm picking the Bengals to beat the Bills, and the Chiefs will meet the Bengals at Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game. All that said, that's a wrap. I hope you liked Gary's deep dive. Let me know in the comments. As always, make sure you like and share and subscribe if you like what you see here. But that's all I got. Let's go Chiefs. It's playoff time, baby. Let's beat those Jaguars.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.